The first time I noticed the money was moving, it looked small, almost harmless, a grocery charge that never posted, a gas purchase that sat pending for days, then disappeared like it had been swallowed. Little ghosts in the checking account. I told myself it was a bank glitch. We'd been married 12 years. Joint accounts, a mortgage, 2 dogs, routines that felt permanent. I didn't have the mental space to imagine theft inside my own kitchen. Then one Tuesday morning, my phone buzzed with a fraud alert while I was waiting in the school pickup line. And it wasn't about a stolen card. It was a wire transfer. One I didn't authorize. 5 digits. Clean. Intentional. I called my husband Luke twice. Straight to voicemail. I texted, "Did you move money?" No answer. The line of cars crept forward, kids yelling somewhere behind tinted windows, and I felt like the world had tilted just enough to make me slide. By the time I got home, Luke's laptop was open on the counter, still logged into our bank. He never left it open. Ever. He was careful in that way I used to interpret as responsible. Now it looked like a mistake, or like arrogance. The balance was wrong. Not we overspent wrong. Wrong like a room after the furniture is removed. I didn't click anything. I didn't refresh. I took photos with my phone because a hard truth rose in my chest. Reality was about to be rewritten, and I needed proof that I'd seen the original. The garage door rumbled. Luke walked in with coffee and winter air, kissed my cheek like it was any other day. I held up my phone. "What is this?" His eyes flicked to the transfer line. A micro flinch, then calm. "I moved money around," he said. "It's fine." "To where?" "An account I opened. Business thing. Tax planning." "You didn't tell me." "You would have freaked out," he said, flat and dismissive, like my consent was a childish preference. "Put it back," I said. Luke leaned closer, voice low, almost intimate. "It's not that simple. And honestly, it's not your money. Not your money. Like I was a roommate. Like 12 years of marriage didn't weld our lives together. It's our savings," I said, and my voice shook despite my effort. "We built that." He shrugged. "I earned it." "You can't hide assets," I said. "That's illegal." He smiled, thin and confident. "But prove it." That night I listened to him breathe beside me in the dark and understood with brutal clarity. He wasn't preparing for divorce papers. He was preparing to leave me with nothing, and he wanted me to panic into making bad choices. He wanted me loud, emotional, unsteady, easy to paint as unreliable. In the morning, I called the bank. The representative's voice was warm and trained. She asked security questions, then confirmed the wire amount and date. "The wire was initiated from your online banking login," she said, "from a recognized device." My login? I swallowed. I didn't do it. The wire was authorized with the primary account holder credentials. Luke. Primary. The word tasted like warning. She couldn't tell me where it went. Privacy policy. "If you need destination details," she added, "you may need legal documentation." I hung up and stopped talking. I started documenting. Timeline, date, time, alert, Luke's words. I downloaded statements going back a year, screenshotted balances, printed everything I could access. I changed my email password, then my phone carrier PIN, then the password to our shared cloud storage. I turned on 2-factor authentication on every account I controlled. I opened a new checking account in my own name only and had my paycheck rerouted there that same day, because Dana, who I hadn't even met yet, would later tell me that small, protective moves early can keep you from being cornered later. I also checked our credit reports, not just mine, ours. I wanted to see what existed that I didn't know about. The first report looked normal. The second, pulled with a different bureau, showed an inquiry I didn't recognize. My throat tightened. It wasn't proof, but it was a scent, like smoke in a hallway. Then I called a divorce attorney. Dana Mercer's office smelled like lemon cleaner and old books. She listened without interrupting, eyes steady. When I finished, she asked one question. "How much?" I told her. She nodded like she'd expected it. "Do you have screenshots?" "Yes." "Good," she said. "Listen carefully. In divorce, both spouses have a duty to disclose assets and debts. Once we file, many courts issue a financial restraining order, automatic or by motion. No unusual transfers, no changing beneficiaries, no selling assets, no incurring new debt outside ordinary living expenses. If he's dissipating marital funds, moving money to keep you from it, the court can order reimbursement, sanctions, and attorney's fees. But we need proof and speed." My pulse thudded. "If I file, he'll know." "He already knows," Dana said gently. "He's acting like he's ahead. Our job is to remind him the court is the referee." I signed the retainer with hands that didn't feel like mine. Dana filed that afternoon. She also drafted an emergency motion asking the court to preserve the marital estate, require full account statements, and set temporary support. Because money control is leverage, and leverage becomes harm if you let it. At home, Luke watched me too closely. "Where were you?" "Errands," I said, and my voice didn't shake. That surprised me. That night I did something that felt both ordinary and revolutionary. I looked at our life in numbers without pretending love could smooth the sharp edges. Mortgage, utilities, credit cards, retirement accounts, my salary, his commissions, the kids' savings. I built a spreadsheet line by line and noticed the pattern. The wire wasn't the first cut. Smaller transfers had been happening for weeks, labeled ACH, online payment, transfer. Amounts just under 10,000, transfers on Fridays. Another transfer on the 15th, like a monthly ritual. He'd been draining us slowly, hoping I wouldn't look until the day it was too late to fix. 2 days later, Luke was served at work. He came home like a storm and slapped the papers on the table. "So you did it," he said. "After everything I've done for this family." "You started this when you moved the money," I said. "It was business," he snapped. "You think you're taking half? Good luck. There won't be a half." There it was, the strategy finally spoken. The next morning, Dana called. "The standard financial restraining order is in place, effective immediately. Will that stop him?" I asked. "It stops him if he wants to stay out of contempt," Dana said. "But we're going to build the case like he'll keep running. Start thinking like a documentarian. Keep every alert, every text, every statement. Don't warn him. Don't negotiate in the kitchen." We requested temporary support and full disclosures. All bank accounts, all brokerage accounts, all retirement accounts, any business interests, any trusts, any crypto wallets, any safe deposit boxes. Dana's language was precise, like a net designed to catch excuses. Luke responded through his attorney, Kenneth Blaine. Kenneth's letter called the transfer prudent financial management and claimed the money was separate from premarital assets. He painted me as hysterical, controlling, eager to punish. Premarital assets. Luke didn't have those. He had a used truck when we met and a chip on his shoulder about never being broke again. Dana didn't laugh. She circled the phrase in red. "Liars start here," she said. "We start proving." She hired a forensic accountant. Marco Yates arrived with 2 monitors, a portable scanner, and the calm focus of someone who enjoys the puzzles other people cry over. He spread statements across the table and asked questions that made my stomach twist. Does he get paid through commissions? Does he have deferred compensation? Any side work? Any family money? Any gambling? Any crypto? Any friends who borrow money? I answered what I knew and admitted what I didn't. Marco nodded. Not knowing is normal, he said. Hiding depends on you not knowing. He built what he called a cash flow timeline. Income in, normal spending out, unusual transfers highlighted. He found patterns I hadn't seen, and he flagged names that sounded harmless. Lighthouse Clearing, North Pine, Harbor Ridge. Names that could be trees or boats, but were actually doors. Dana issued subpoenas. Our bank for wire details and device logs. Luke's employer for commission statements and benefit elections. The clearing firm for brokerage account information. Kenneth fought them, called them overreaching. Dana answered with evidence. The wire alert, my screenshots, Luke's admission that he moved the money, the transfer patterns. 3 weeks in, escalation hit. The bank responded. Dana called. Sit down. The wire went to an account at Harbor Ridge Credit Union, she said. Account holder, North Pine Consulting, LLC. Registered agent, Luke. My stomach dropped. He made a company. He made a pocket, Dana said. We're demanding the LLC operating agreement, tax ID, bank statements, and any contracts. If it's legitimate, it will have records. If it's a shell, the emptiness will speak. That night, Luke confronted me in the hallway, eyes bright with anger. You've been digging. You've been hiding, I said. He stepped closer. We could settle, quietly. You take your car, your clothes, a little cash. You go. I keep the house. I keep my accounts. We stop bleeding money to lawyers. Offering me my own clothes, I asked. He shrugged. It's what you're worth. Something inside me went cold, not broken. Forged. No, I said. It's what you think you can get away with. Temporary orders hearing, fluorescent lights, cold air, Luke in a suit, polished and convincing. The kind of man strangers assume is reasonable. Kenneth argued Luke needed flexibility for his consulting business. He insisted the transfer was tax planning. He suggested I was financially incompetent. Dana stood and held up my screenshots and the timeline like a mirror. Your Honor, she said, he formed an LLC in secret and wired marital savings into it. He refuses to return it. He now claims separate funds with no proof. My client has maintained the household and the children, while the respondent removes liquidity from the marital estate. The judge, a woman with tired eyes, looked at Luke. Why wasn't your spouse informed of this transfer? Luke lifted his chin. This was before filing. The court can still consider dissipation, the judge said. Provide full statements for any accounts or entities you control, including North Pine, within 10 days. No further unusual transfers. Temporary support will be calculated. Violations will result in sanctions. Luke's jaw clenched. For the first time, he looked cornered. Then the mail started arriving like warning shots. An IRS letter confirming a change of address request I hadn't made. A credit card offer addressed to Luke at a P.O. box. A brokerage statement with a balance I didn't recognize. A confirmation email from a password manager I didn't use. Each piece wasn't proof on its own. Together, they formed a picture. Luke wasn't just moving money. He was reorganizing his identity around a future where I had no access. Marco reviewed the LLC bank statements when they finally arrived. Here's the wire, he said, And here's what happens next. Outgoing transfers, smaller wires, ACH payments labeled consulting fees, payments to a payroll service, and repeated transfers to a brokerage account ending in 4421 in the name of a trust. A trust, I whispered. Dana's face tightened. We need the trust documents, creation date, trustee, beneficiaries, funding sources, and we need them yesterday. Luke stalled. Partial pages, missing attachments, claims of privacy. Kenneth wrote long letters about harassment and fishing expeditions. Dana wrote shorter letters about court orders and consequences. Then Luke escalated again. Small, vicious sabotage. I went to pay the mortgage and the payment bounced. Not for lack of funds, but because the autopay account number had been changed online. The portal showed the update timestamp. It was a week earlier, right after the restraining order, authorized access. Luke again. I drove to Dana's office with my hands shaking. He's trying to make me default, I said. He's trying to ruin my credit so I look irresponsible. Dana's eyes went hard. That's not negotiation, she said. That's sabotage. She filed an emergency motion. The judge ordered Luke to restore autopay, stop interfering with household payments, and provide proof of compliance. Attorney's fees were reserved due to bad faith. Luke began sending texts that were threats in polite clothing. You're making this ugly. You'll regret dragging me through court. You're going to lose everything anyway. I didn't respond. Silence became my shield. I took screenshots, saved them to a folder Dana could drop into evidence. Marco called one Friday. I found the funnel, he said. North Pine was receiving marital funds, then paying a payroll service that paid Luke. He was laundering the label, trying to turn savings into business income, hoping a judge would see LLC payroll and forget the origin. Dana moved for a forensic accounting order and a contempt finding for incomplete trust disclosures. Kenneth objected. The court ordered production anyway. Luke responded by draining our joint checking account to $52. I found out at the grocery store when my card declined with a loud beep. People turned their heads. I stood there, heat crawling up my neck, and tried again. Declined. I abandoned the cart and walked out as if my body belonged to someone else. In my car, I opened the banking app. The transfer out was time-stamped that morning. The memo said online transfer. No explanation, just emptiness. He wasn't just hiding money. He was making me small. Dana got us into court fast. Luke claimed he needed to pay taxes. Kenneth called it ordinary. Dana showed the judge the screenshot and my household expense list, down to dog food and school lunches. This is coercion, she said. He is using financial control to force settlement. The judge's patience snapped. Temporary support was ordered immediately. Luke was ordered to reimburse the checking account within 48 hours and provide proof. Contempt was on the table. 2 days later, money returned. Enough to breathe, not all of it, but enough for groceries without the beep of shame. After that hearing, Luke didn't stop moving pieces. He got quieter, which was worse. Quiet meant planning. He stopped using our joint cards and started using something else. The grocery receipts he left on the counter disappeared. The gas station charges no longer showed up. He was living, and somehow it wasn't showing in the usual places. Marco explained it to me in plain language. When people hide money, they usually do one of three things, he said. They convert it, they camouflage it, or they relocate it. Convert means cash or cashier's checks. Camouflage means pushing it through an entity, labeling it business. Relocate means sending it somewhere you won't think to look. Another bank, another state, another person. Another person, I repeated. Marco nodded. Friends, relatives, a new partner. Someone willing to hold it until the dust settles. That was the first time I let myself think the thought all the way through. That Luke might be building a life that didn't include me, financed by the money we'd saved for our family. The anger that rose wasn't loud. It was focused. Dana taught me the difference between feeling and acting. Your emotions are valid, she said, but we weaponize facts, not feelings. So I built the fact pile higher. Every morning I checked balances, not obsessively, strategically. I screenshot anything unusual, then I emailed it to myself and to Dana, so it was time-stamped in 2 places. I kept the originals on an external drive in a folder labeled simply Backup. When you're dealing with someone who can click Delete, redundancy becomes safety. I also took a hard look at the house. It wasn't just walls. It was equity. It was stability for the kids. Luke knew that. He knew if he could make me feel financially unstable, I might offer the house in exchange for cash just to stop the bleeding. One evening, my sister called. "How are you holding up?" she asked softly. I stared at the sink full of dishes and the mail stacked like an accusation. "I'm functioning," I said. "That's not an answer." I swallowed. "He drained checking," I admitted. "He changed mortgage autopay. He's moving money like it's a game." My sister went quiet for a beat. "I hate him," she said, and the simple honesty made me tear up. "I don't have time to hate him," I whispered. "I have to outlast him." The next escalation came wrapped in charm. Luke showed up at the house on a Saturday morning with donuts for the kids and a smile that looked practiced. "Can we talk?" he asked, as if we were discussing paint colors, not betrayal. I stepped outside onto the porch so the kids wouldn't hear. The air was sharp. Luke leaned on the railing like he belonged there. "I talked to Kenneth," he said. "This is going to get expensive for you. You know that, right?" "I know it's expensive for me not to fight," I said. Luke's smile twitched. "Look, you're good at being dramatic, but courts don't care about feelings. They care about numbers, and the numbers say there's not much left." "Because you moved it," I said. He lifted both hands. Fake peace. "I moved it to protect it. From you." I stared at him. "From me? I'm your wife." He leaned in. "Not for long." Then he lowered his voice further. "I'm going to offer you a settlement. A fair one. If you reject it, I'm going to make sure you spend everything you have on lawyers just to end up with less." It was the cleanest threat he'd made yet, and it clarified something important. Luke didn't just want money. He wanted to win. I went back inside, heart pounding, and wrote down his exact words in my notebook while they were still fresh. Date, time, context, threat. Dana would later tell me that contemporaneous notes aren't magic, but they're persuasive, especially when they match other evidence. A week later, Luke's disclosures arrived. They were thick, organized, and wrong. He listed accounts, yes. He provided statements, yes. But the statements had holes, missing months, missing pages that looked like they'd been scanned twice. He listed North Pine, but minimized it. He listed the trust, but called it inactive. He claimed the initial wire was reimbursement for separate funds he'd brought into the marriage. Dana read the packet and said, "He's trying to drown us in paper while hiding the pages that matter." She filed a motion to compel. In plain terms, we went to the court and said, "He is not complying." At the discovery conference, the judge didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "Mr. Hart," she said, "your obligations are not optional. If you fail to provide complete documents, the court can impose sanctions and may draw adverse inferences. Do you understand?" Luke nodded, jaw tight. "Yes, Your Honor." "Then comply," she said, and set a deadline that felt like a ticking clock. The day before that deadline, Marco called again. "I pulled the device log from the bank," he said. "The wire was initiated from Luke's phone, not yours. He used biometrics. That matters if he tries to claim you authorized it." I felt a strange relief, like a knot loosening. "So it's clear," I said. "It's clear to anyone who reads," Marco replied, and judges read. Then Marco found something else in the LLC statements, a payment to a crypto exchange. My throat tightened. "Crypto? Not huge," Marco said, "but it's there. A transfer out labeled with an exchange code. He might be testing routes." Dana added the exchange to the subpoena list. If Luke was trying to relocate assets into wallets and private keys, we needed the records before the trail cooled. Luke fought that subpoena hard. Kenneth called crypto speculative and irrelevant. Dana replied that hidden assets are hidden assets, no matter the format. The court agreed with Dana. When the crypto records arrived, they showed Luke had opened an exchange account under his own name and had purchased a modest amount of cryptocurrency using funds that originated from North Pine, which originated from our joint savings. It wasn't enough to change the whole case, but it was enough to show intent. He was exploring ways to move money where he thought it couldn't be traced. Marco highlighted the chain. "This is the mindset," he said. "He's not making one mistake. He's building a system." By late spring, I felt like my life had become a loop of court dates, school lunches, bank statements, and the constant hum of vigilance. Some nights I would sit in the laundry room with the dryer running and stare at my own hands, wondering how I'd become someone who knew what a motion to compel was, someone who could recite account balances like song lyrics. Then, the bankruptcy twist landed, and the loop shifted into a larger arena. After the filing, the bankruptcy trustee's office scheduled the 341 meeting, the meeting of creditors. Dana told me I didn't have to attend, but she encouraged me to listen in. "It's under oath," she said. "You'll hear what he's willing to say when the stakes are federal." On the day of the meeting, Luke appeared on a video call, Kenneth beside him. The trustee, a calm man with an unremarkable face and an unmistakable authority, started asking questions with a tone that made it clear he'd heard every excuse in the book. "Mr. Hart," the trustee said, "did you review your schedules before signing them?" "Yes," Luke said. "Are they true and correct to the best of your knowledge?" "Yes." "Do you have any bank accounts not listed?" "No." "Do you have any trust accounts not listed?" Luke hesitated. It was half a second, but it was there. "No," he said. The trustee didn't react. He simply turned a page. "Do you have any interests in entities not listed?" "I listed my LLC," Luke said quickly. The trustee nodded. "North Pine Consulting. You listed minimal assets. Explain what minimal means." Luke cleared his throat. It doesn't have much. It's new." The trustee's voice stayed calm. "How much money went into North Pine in the last 12 months?" Luke blinked. "I don't know offhand." The trustee leaned forward slightly. "You don't know how much money your business received?" Luke glanced at Kenneth. Kenneth said, "We can supplement." The trustee's eyebrows lifted. "You can supplement? But you are under oath right now. Are you telling me you moved significant funds and cannot estimate the amount?" Luke's jaw flexed. I moved funds for taxes. The trustee's voice sharpened a fraction. For taxes, or to shield them from a spouse? Luke stiffened. That's not... The trustee raised a hand. I'm not here to mediate your marriage. I'm here to determine whether you have been honest with this court, and honesty in bankruptcy is not optional. Dana muted me on our call so I wouldn't make noise, but I still felt my breath hitch. Luke had never been spoken to like that. Not by a judge who had to share time with dozens of cases. Not by a mediator paid to be gentle. This was different. This was a man whose job was to catch liars. After the meeting, the trustee issued additional document requests, and Luke's posture changed everywhere. His emails grew frantic. His business suddenly had to produce ledgers. The trust suddenly had to be explained with dates and signatures and bank statements. The paperwork he had used as a shield became the thing that pinned him down. Around that time, Kenneth's tone softened. He stopped writing long letters about harassment and started asking about resolution. He stopped calling Marco biased and started requesting Marco's full report to evaluate. When the other side stops swaggering and starts asking for information, it means the ground under them has shifted. Luke tried one last escalation anyway. He sent a settlement offer that looked generous on the surface. A lump sum, quick exit, no more hearings. But Dana read the fine print and pointed to the poison. He wants you to waive claims to dissipation, she said. He wants you to agree that the transfer was separate property. He wants you to release the trust. He wants you to sign a confidentiality clause that punishes you financially if you ever talk about financial misconduct. So he wants me to bless his theft, I said. Dana nodded. And to gag you with it. I felt the old fatigue rise, the temptation to end it just to sleep. Dana watched my face and said quietly, "This is the moment people get tired and give up. And that's what he's counting on." I looked at the file on her desk, screenshots, deposit images, serial numbers, trustee letters, court orders, a mountain of truth. "No," I said, "we don't bless it." Dana rejected the offer and set a mediation date, because courts like settlement. But Dana liked settlement only when it came with accountability. Mediation was a strange kind of theater. Luke sat in one room, I sat in another, and the mediator walked back and forth, carrying versions of reality like trays. Each time the mediator came in, she tried to soften the edges. He feels misunderstood. He's under stress. He wants to move forward. Dana never raised her voice. She simply kept repeating the facts. He moved marital funds. He concealed them. He interfered with payments. He violated court orders. He filed bankruptcy and failed to disclose accounts. The court has already sanctioned him. The trustee is investigating. Our settlement demands reflect that. When the mediator returned with Luke's next offer, Dana read it and looked at me. "He's not ready," she said. "He still thinks this is a negotiation between you and him. It's not. It's between him and consequences." The second mediation session happened after the contempt hearing about the life insurance beneficiary change, after the sanctions order, after the trustee subpoenas. That's when Luke arrived looking older, as if the weight of paperwork had finally become physical. This time, the offer shifted. The language changed from separate to marital, from minimal assets to return, from confidentiality to reasonable privacy. Kenneth stopped posturing and started calculating. Dana pushed for a power reversal that wasn't just emotional, but structural. "Support with automatic withdrawal," she said. "A QDRO drafted now, not later. A refinance deadline with consequences. A clawback of dissipated funds. Attorney's fees paid directly. The mediator blinked. That's a lot. It's proportionate, Dana said. When Luke finally agreed, it wasn't because he suddenly found morality. It was because he'd run out of exits. And when the final agreement was signed, Dana added one more line that felt like an exhale. If Luke failed to refinance the house on time, the property would be listed automatically, and my equity share would increase. No more stalling. No more games. Time, finally, belonged to me. The last hearing before the final papers felt different from the earlier ones. At the beginning of this divorce, Luke walked into court like it was a stage made for him. He smiled at bailiffs. He joked with Kenneth. He wore confidence like a tailored suit. By the end, he walked in like a man carrying a heavy bag he couldn't set down, because the bag was filled with his own decisions. Dana stood beside me and whispered, "Watch how he sits." I glanced across the aisle. Luke's shoulders were rounded. His foot tapped. He wasn't looking around for allies anymore. He was watching the door, like he expected consequences to enter. The judge reviewed the stipulation slowly, line by line, as if she wanted Luke to feel every word. "You will return the funds traced into North Pine and the trust," she read. "You will pay attorney's fees as ordered. You will maintain support through automatic withdrawal. You will not change beneficiaries or dispose of assets without written agreement or court order." Luke nodded with a stiffness that looked like swallowing. The judge paused. "Mr. Hart," she said, "do you understand that if these terms are violated, the court can enforce them through contempt?" "Yes," Luke said, voice tight. "And do you understand," she continued, "that misrepresentations in your bankruptcy schedules carry separate consequences in a separate court?" Luke's eyes flickered. "Yes." The judge signed. The sound of her pen on paper felt louder than it should have, a small scratch that somehow ended a whole chapter of my life. In the hallway afterward, Kenneth spoke to Luke in a sharp whisper, then walked away without looking at him again. Luke stood there for a second, alone, as if he'd expected someone to rescue him from the mess he made. When his eyes met mine, they didn't hold anger anymore. They held something closer to disbelief, that I hadn't caved. Dana touched my elbow. "We still finish the cleanup," she said. "QDRO paperwork, refinance timeline, account transfers. Winning on paper is step 1. Getting the money where it belongs is step 2. So we finished the cleanup. Marco confirmed the traced funds arriving back into the proper accounts. Dana coordinated the QDRO, an order that tells a retirement plan administrator exactly how to split the account without triggering taxes or penalties the wrong way. She made sure the percentages reflected the dissipation and the sanctions, not just a neat 50-50 fiction. She set a deadline for the plan to process it, and she built in reminders and enforcement language, because Luke's favorite tactic had always been delay. When the first transfer hit my new account, I stared at the numbers for a long time. Not because money is magic, but because this money carried meaning. It was proof that the truth can be heavy and slow, but it still arrives. And in a strange way, the relief wasn't just financial. It was neurological. My body had been braced for months, waiting for the next sabotage, the next surprise, the next, oops, it's gone. Seeing the balance stabilize felt like unclenching muscles I didn't realize I'd been holding tight. Luke sent one final message the night the QDRO was approved. "You got what you wanted." I read it once and didn't answer, because what I wanted was never to take something from him. What I wanted was to not be erased. The kids noticed the shift before I did. The house got quieter in the evenings. Not because it was empty, but because it wasn't tense. Dinner stopped feeling like a performance. I stopped jumping when my phone buzzed. I stopped checking the bank app every hour, like it was a heartbeat monitor. One afternoon, my oldest asked carefully, "Are we okay now?" I swallowed hard and nodded. "We're okay." They didn't ask about money. They asked about safety. That's what money control really steals first. The sense that tomorrow is predictable. I promised them we'd keep the same school, the same bedrooms, the same dog walks, the same little traditions that glue childhood together. And as I said it, I realized I was also promising it to myself. Because the real power reversal wasn't Luke losing his hiding places. It was me becoming someone he couldn't confuse, intimidate, or starve into silence. I learned to treat "trust me" like a phrase that needs receipts. I learned that love doesn't require secrecy, and partnership doesn't require permission slips from one spouse to the other. And I learned that when someone says, "Prove it," the best answer isn't shouting. It's evidence. Calmly delivered, then let the system do the rest. A month later, the trust funds transferred back under court order. Watching the numbers return felt unreal, like water flowing back into a dry riverbed. Some replenished savings, some paid fees, some went into an account in my name only. A simple, ordinary account that felt like a lock on a door. The first quiet night after it was final, I sat on the porch swing with the dogs at my feet and listened to sprinklers clicking down the street. The neighborhood sounded normal, and that normal sound held something I hadn't felt in months. Safety. Money had moved because Luke thought it could. It moved back because I documented, filed, and forced the truth into a system that runs on paper and penalties. And because I finally understood the difference between love and control. If your phone ever buzzes with an alert that doesn't fit your life, don't dismiss it. Don't soften it. Don't explain it away to keep peace. Pay attention and protect yourself.